Hi guys, welcome back. Okay, today I'm going to finish the cat that I started yesterday. I didn't expect to be doing the whole cat, and I ended up having such a good time. I did the entire thing, but I was able to get the footage down to a reasonable amount, so we can do this all in one video. So let's get started. I'm going to begin by dotting in some of the highlights in the eyes. Wherever you want it. Now, in here, I'm going to scratch a little bit lighter. Okay, and I'm going to put it a little bit here, a little bit here. And I'm going to start off with the chartreuse. Very lightly going over the picture. And where I scratched will start to really come out. I'm not even using any sort of technique except light coloring. Really relaxing. Okay, then I'm going to add in some aquamarine. Very lightly. And let's get some up going over here. Then I'm going to add in a little bit of Spanish orange to give some gold flecks in the eyes. Then I'm going to go in with my black. And I'm going to start darkening in the pupil. Now, where I started darkening in the pupil, where I scratched, should stay gray because it's a very light scratching that I did. And I'm going to get some of these striations in here. And you'll see how quickly this picture really goes fast. I'm going to be able to finish this picture up in one sitting. What I like about these PDFs, just a little bit about her. She does pet portraits, and she could probably turn your pet into a coloring page for you. I know that she does individual personalized books for people. This is not sponsored in any way. In fact, I've never even spoken to her. Now I'm going to use this. Now when you're doing your hairs on the fur, I'm going to scratch in a little bit of this. What I wouldn't use this on probably how can I say this? Okay, I don't think I would use this technique on pages that weren't grayscale. And that's because I have a layer of color on here, so I'm not that worried about covering this cat so much in color because I kind of have a helping hand being so much usable shading. So on here I'm doing this in tapered stroke because it's fur, and I'm going into this white in both directions. Now, I'm not worried about it covering up because even if I touch the line, it's not going to show up because I scratched it in. In addition to this cat, Lisa Marie, the owner of the Etsy shop, has like 200 other animals to choose from, and they've got some really cute foxes. Now I know, who was it? It was another YouTuber. Somebody tell me in the comments section below the other day. She's got a little English accent. She's adorable. She works in mixed media, does hangouts. She was working on a fox the other day. They came out so cute, and she got me missing doing some fur, and I was actually looking for a different animal when I came across this cat. And I was like, oh no, I like this cat. And you keep going on this. The more you keep going, and just because this is grayscale doesn't mean you let up on your strokes. That's not how it works. I mean, some grayscale, you don't need to work at it that much, but when it comes to cats and stuff, and this type of fur, yeah, keep your strokes nice and wispy. It is so hot out there today. Puff has got such an attitude. He's like loving life these days. And I don't usually bring him in. I usually bring him in at night. I don't like him staying outside at night. Only because if I go to sleep and it starts to rain, I don't want him really being rained on and catching a chill. Even though it's like warm during the day here, it could get... we're still at that iffy month here that the temps can still drop. So he has given us such a tood coming in. You open up the cage. He's got a new cage, and apparently he likes this new cage. He doesn't want to leave it. And he doesn't want to go back into his wintertime cage, which is, of course, much smaller. I'm going to have to do something for next winter, because he definitely has expressed a dislike for it. And I may end up bringing his big cage from outside inside, even though it's going to take up half a room. I may put it in the back of my dining room where I have some space. His new cage has 2 levels, and at night he goes out into the upper level. He climbs up there, and you can definitely see this is like a nightly thing. So he has definitely chosen his bedroom. See, I didn't scratch over there, so I'm losing some of my white. Makes a difference. I could do this without scratching, of course, but not as relaxed and paying way more attention to what I'm doing. This is the perfect example of why coloring is therapeutic. This would be what I would consider a therapy picture that comes out good at the end. See, I scratched right there, and I got a second line right there going right next to it, so it looks like that hair is shadowed. Now, I added in a little bit of brown over here, a little bit of sienna. But the thing about cats is they definitely have multiple shades of color in their fur. And if anyone is curious, yes, I do have a reference picture. Even though I'm not doing one-to-one, I still have that reference picture here for me to glance at every once in a while, just to keep me on track. Okay, I wanted you guys to take a look at this really up close, and I wanted to show you what the artist, not me, but the artist did to create the hairs in this picture. And I want to point out right here. That's an eraser line. That's an eraser line. This is a very popular way of creating hairs in addition to doing the scratch method. She may have used both methods in this, but if you look at the point of this, this is probably the exact tool she used. And this is why I'm always recommending having one of these. It's one of the pencils. This is a Mono Zero Tombow eraser. And this is one of the reasons I always tell you that to create these hair-like entities in your pictures, the eraser is a tool. And you can see it over here where she got a little thicker with it. But these very fine hairs, that's how they're created. And you could tell it was an eraser because she's got paper staining right there. So she didn't go directly to the line and have this outlined. This was directly on the paper. Good job. This is an amazing picture. I love this picture. As artwork in itself, I love this picture. So I'm continuing the hairs. Now, what I like about this, doing this as a grayscale, is my under hairs are already done for me. You can see over here, too, how it was created. If you look deeply, the mystery is gone. This was created using, well, it's a graphite picture, and very easily created using the eraser. And it looks very lifelike, very real looking. So I'm not the only person who does this. This is a common method of doing hair. That first layer, see, you don't get away with a picture like this and just color over it or marker over it. You're not going to get that rich, hair-like things in the picture unless you do some work. You gotta earn it. And as I was saying before, she's got a lot of these on her Etsy site. And I already know there's a dog one that I want, and I may have her do a sketch for me. It's a sketch I know I can do. I'm ashamed to say I want somebody else to do the sketch part. Because she does private sketching. Now, you see how she did the hair here? And the eraser mark is right there. It went through. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a shadow on it. I'm going to make that hair stick up. It also blurs some of the lines when you're doing it. So if you put a little shadow underneath that mark, even when you're doing like veins on leaves, right there, when you're doing the veins on leaves, if you say this was a vein on a leaf right there, can you guys see that? Let me put this. Okay. So say this was a vein on a leaf, and I had done my scratching, and I had gone over, so I actually can do a scratch on there so that I don't mess it up. So let's scratch it, so I'll be sure to keep it. Okay. Now I'm going to take my darker color. It could be leaf green. It could even be black. And I'm going to put a mark above it and below it. And I'm going to move out. You know how artists get those nice highlights on the veins of leaves? And then you try to recreate it and you just make a mess? Well, this is what they're doing. They're doing a white line and then they shade it down. So it looks like that line is just popping off the picture. And then, of course, you don't leave it as a flat line. You gotta make it organic. And here it is. So that's the way I do it. Now these all, they could have been some pencil, some not pencil, but now I'm going to take my white on it. And if I really want it to stick out, that's a hair that sticks out. But see closely all these hairs. Some people add in a window. That cat could be looking at a tree. And you always do it on both. Keep your pupils equal. See, the eyes don't have to be the same size. See, they're different shapes because of the way the cat is looking, but the pupils are equal. Now this one's got a lot more white in it. We were talking about that Leonardo da Vinci picture we did the other day, and how Leonardo da Vinci, what happened with his pictures is he used to make his pupils unequal. And the story goes that he actually had very poor vision. And I'm not sure if it was strabismus. Well, he had trouble focusing his eyes. So what it said and rumored and pondered and discussed is that he used to put his hand over one eye. And know how I always told you that you have to, being an artist, you need to have the ability to take a three-dimensional object and in your mind flatten it to a two-dimensional object. And that's how he did it, by covering one eye. Okay, now what am I doing? I'm just adding a light mark in there for a more realistic look because the eye is very moist. See, just because this is grayscale doesn't mean you can't work on it. All these different flecks of colors that you can add just makes it look more lifelike. Because the eye is actually a muscle. This is all like, there's a muscle behind the cornea that called the iris, and that's what brings your pupil in and out. It's what dilates it, and that muscle isn't smooth. And that's what you're actually seeing when you're looking at the iris. The iris? Irish? No. Iris. Iris of the eye is you're seeing the muscle. Okay, just working on this one slightly. And the pupil, also when you're doing a pupil, now this is very smooth. It really shouldn't be. The pupil of the eye is not perfectly round. So eyes that are done perfectly round, they never look natural. You have to add some striations onto it for it to be an actual eye. It's actually kind of star-like. For you to do a really good eye, it should take you some time. They're not fast things. There's a lot of structures in the eye. Now, on a cat, it's wide open and they don't have much of an eyelid. I mean, they can close their eye, but when they're open, their eyes are really open. But on a human eye, did you know that a trick for a human eye, and I'll do this on the cat, is you shade right over the pupil to give it dimension. And that's something you got to remember to do. Is there's always going to be remember, the eye is in a socket. Okay, it's a ball in a socket. The eyelid is not attached to the eyeball. It's on the outside and it closes up the eye. So being that they're two different structures, what type of line do you think you use? Hard line. Whenever you're separating two structures, it's a hard line, and there should be a shadow. On a cat, it's not so much because of the way they open up their eyes. On a cat, it's dark. On a human, this would be pinkish. I don't know what the corner of their eye where their tear duct is. And that's why I'm adding a little bit white, because the tear duct has structure in it. It's kind of mushy and gushy. Now you can't really see that area on this one. Okay, now I start working on the other eye a little bit more. I didn't expect to be actually doing this so much. But I'm enjoying it. One of my subscribers, well, let's talk about some of my subscribers. One of my subscribers wrote a very nice comment, and she was talking about how she's only been coloring for about 3 months, and she felt guilty about using reference photos. And I totally get that, where you think that you can't. Every good artist uses reference photos. That's why I push them so much on this channel. And she said in the comment that she watches a lot of YouTubers and they don't really talk about reference photos, so she kind of thought it was like cheating. She was happy I gave her the go-ahead and the okay to use a reference photo because she likes using them. It's It's not so much using the reference photo, but I want to talk about something else. What people think are allowed in art, which I totally get that, because a lot of the rules that my teachers gave me about drawing and have, while it made me in some ways it made me a better artist, following like the strictness of when I learned I wasn't allowed to have any sort of blending uh, tools. I wasn't. It was very strict. They were, you do art as art, and what you do is what you put. Like we just had like these rules, and ever since then, I kind of like stuck to the rules that were given to me, and then it dawned on me, and not too long ago, is who made up those rules? I mean, seriously. Um, I understand the teaching aspects behind when you're learning how to blend, you can't, you shouldn't rely on blending tools until, see, nobody told me the until part. I agree that you shouldn't rely on blending tools until you are comfortable at blending art. When you become comfortable yourself blending and comfortable with the strokes, that's when you can take liberty of using things that make it look better. So I wouldn't have used mineral spirits. I wouldn't have used these things back in the day. But you guys are not being judged. You guys want to produce nice art. There is no reason that you can't use an eraser to make a highlight. There is no reason that you can't use a reference photo. If you're having trouble getting the dimensions of something, if you're doing original artwork, especially a portrait, do you know that Leonardo da Vinci, they say, well, he was like the father of invention. He was that Edison? Well, whatever. He was this great inventor. In addition, he was a scientist. He's what the Renaissance man is. He did it all. And they said that back in the day, with all the great masters and everything, that they used to use a primitive form of projector to project an image onto a canvas. And that's how they did it, which is really interesting because that's like the early form of a light box. So if it was good enough for the greatest artists that ever lived, well, not true. That the greatest artists to change the way people did art, because there's been a lot of good artists since the Renaissance. Since it was good enough for them, it should be fine for us. So, as a teacher of art in 2019, my answer about what the rules are is there are no rules. There are rules of perspective if you want it to look right. If you want it to look realistic. Nature provided you some of those rules of nature. But if you don't follow them, look at Picasso. He didn't follow any rules. he was his own person. And as far as age go, I've had a couple of people say that they're older. This is the first time they're doing art. I want you to remind you that Grandma Moses was in her later 80s. I said it the other day. Somebody had made a comment about it, and I looked up her age. I think she was 87 when she started doing art, when she first picked up a brush. At that age, there is no age limit on imagination whatsoever. So, and let's see, what else was I read? I read everybody's comments. I don't, I get a lot of comments, so I can't possibly answer every one of them, but I read every one of them. Mr. Cream and his coffee. Mr. Coffee. We seem to have this thing. I always do a lesson after he screws up a picture, or he thinks he screws something up. He doesn't screw things up. He's a lot better than he thinks. Um, he just, he needed my butterfly a week ago. And that happens quite a lot. There's always somebody that's working on the same thing as I am. So I hope it helps. Butterflies, they're in every book. I mean, really, they're in every single book that people put out. It seems that coloring book artists think we're all into coloring butterflies. And they were usually the last thing on my paper for me to do. That's why I kind of chose to do the butterfly. I'm taking my hairs right up to that line. That was her eraser line. I'm taking my hair now. What I'm going to do, you see, it looks like an eraser line. I want to thin it out because cat whiskers are not that thick. This is another thing. If you're going to use your eraser or use your Posca, carve it down. Usually lines on Posca, especially on Posca, are usually always too thick. So if you want a more realistic looking whisker, see, like this is too thick. But she was making a coloring book, so kind of has to show up this line. Usually I'll do an erased line, and after it I always shape it. Even if you just fade the edges, I think she did do this with an eraser, because I'm looking at some of her white, and there's some blunt ends at the end of the white that probably aren't going to show up on the original sketch. Ooh, it's looking good. My cat was asymmetrical, which was, when I got my cat, my husband looked at it and said, well, my husband did not want me to have a cat. This cat entered my life unexpectedly one day. My neighbor knocked on my door with it. It was a little itty bitty kitten, maybe a week old, still had its umbilical cord, with pneumonia and a really bad eye infection. And she gave it to me because I was the animal rescue person. And it took me about, 30 seconds to fall in love. And my husband, not so much. My husband didn't like cats. Um, so it took him a little while to warm up to my cat. I forgot what I was talking about and even why I was saying that. Oh, asymmetrical. My husband, silly me, one of his ways of getting me to not want my cat, like, we can't keep this one, was because he had this little white thing on it, like right here, and it wasn't symmetrical. It was like off in one direction. You know how cats can be. They don't necessarily, they're not necessarily even, especially black and white cats. So that's what he said to me. We can't keep it because he's not symmetrical. I was like, that's not going to work. Now, whenever doing nostrils are always a fade. See how it's lighter down here and then darker up here? That's what you want, because it's a hole. And the deeper it goes into the nose. So that's why you have a fade going on every nose that you do. That's what the nostrils look like. See, now on here, what she did was she did basically a rub of graphite, and she made it all nice and even. And then in the graphite, she took her little eraser and she went like that. There's a name for it when you do that. It's like reverse negative space or something like that. But that's how you have these little hairs going off. And that's how she did that. I'm going to just highlight some of them. I only added a little bit of color to this brown over here. I'm going to add a little bit more in, but it's just something for me about a black and white cat. And as I said, I'm unsquaring some of her squared areas for the hair. Now, to blend it in really well, I think I was using sienna. Say I want to add in hair. Nice sharp pencil. You don't start at the hair. You start in the middle so that it blends seamlessly into the next row. If you don't do that, then it doesn't look natural, because the hair is going to lay on it. Like, you know how many hours this girl must have worked on this? You don't even realize. She did a lot of detailed hair, a lot of good shading in it everywhere. And let me tell you something, Blix is like, for a colorist, is like walking into heaven. Every pencil, everything is there. And I like the staff. They opened up a big one. They used to be a very small store here. I started adding some white, and I wanted to show you a little trick. And I don't think I've ever shown you guys this before. When doing hair, now this is like a great trick. You always get the first hair in because your pencil is nice and sharp. I started adding in some of the white to brighten up some of the darker areas. So you start out with the pencil being really sharp, okay? And you're going to do your flick, and you have your hair. Then I want you to turn the pencil just in your hand, just a little bit, and you're going to get your next flick. Turn, and your next flick. This will keep your pencil sharp, and you'll get much more hair out of the pencil tip before you have to re-sharpen it. So like here, nice dark one, nice bright one, and then here. Because what it's doing is it's creating its own point. And if you just keep turning it, you get a lot more. Remember, this pencil is very soft, so you're going to want to brush away that extra little bit that may come off. So now I want to do this area a little brighter. And I turn and twist. Can you guys see that? I'm doing it in like slow motion. And twist. Okay, I want to get in here brighter. Keep turning my pencil. I'm going a little bit lighter right now because I want those hairs near the eye to be blended in. Now if I want a darker one, just a little more pressure. Remember, you keep your hairs going in the direction, and you can always go over don't go over the tip of it, but if you want it darkened up, you can always go over the middle. My daughter gave me a suggestion. If I didn't want to add graphite over here, I can do a very solid but very light layer on the edge with the black. Now I'm not scribbling. Don't scribble. But I'm doing like a normal stroke just on the edges. That will darken things up. Because this is what I was a little bit concerned about, being able, not wanting to put that border on it or the background on it. So I just have a little bit of a taper at the end of each of these strokes. Once I get it dark enough, I can go in and add the white hairs, and they'll show up. Okay, that's nice and soft. Now I'm going to go back with my white, and I'm going to add in the hairs. Now if I had made it really dark, it would have really stuck out. Needed a little bit more fur over there anyway. Okay, now over here, you have to do something with this area. Now, because it is an ear, and what happens, the ear, even though it's attached to the head very softly, this cuts off because it's really the head and then the ear is a little further back. So I need some way of discerning that this is a hard line, and I'm going to do that with color. I'm going to, just to get it close to me. I know it's upside down. Now you don't want to make a hard line, because if you do, it's going to look really funny with the fur. Anything on the edge needs to be tapered. Okay, now I'm going to add black over that. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't think I mentioned that was umber. Dark umber. Now I'm going to get the black out. Because I'm doing the finishing touches on it, I could be doing the finishing touches for hours. Literally. A hair here, a shade here. But as far as now is concerned, a little bit more. Do you remember that video where I couldn't stop? Those, I think it was the brocane. I think it was the bocab, the little blurry dots. I couldn't stop. That's what this is like. But I think you guys have the picture, and I will see you guys in my next video. Take care. It was irritating me, so I fixed the eye. The perspective was a little bit off, so it made it look like the eye was too narrow. It's a common mistake. Not a big deal. Easy fix. A little bit of pencil and an eraser. And now the eyes are a little bit more open and a little bit more even. This side looks like it needs a little bit more over here. How's that? Photo real enough for you?